Welcome.
Hey, what is going on, everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7 Now today. Got another first impressions for you guys. That's right, this time around, we're going to be taking a look at Aram, and boy oh boy, is she going to be absolutely amazing. I'm just saying it right off the bat here, because her skill kit and, well, her artwork, I guess, leaves a very, as they say, a strong impression on the community. So yeah, I am very excited to dive into this here because we have a lot to discuss. And we're going to start off with her hero introduction with her star sign and stats. So, Aram is a 5-star Fire Elemental Soul Weaver, and she is rocking the Scorpio star sign. Now, when it comes to Scorpio Soul Weavers, we actually do not have that many of them. The most notable one that I think people will be most familiar with is going to be Dragon King Sharoon. So let's take a look at her stat line here. This is my current build. I know it's not something that's very typical of Dragon King Sharoon's, but this is what I like. She actually got a buff in which her star sign was changed to the Scorpio star sign, giving her some extra health and giving her some extra effectiveness, mainly the effectiveness, right? So my Dragon King Sharoon, after the buff here, actually dropped down in terms of her health, I believe, and increased in her effectiveness overall. And she got an increase in speed too, which was the main change. But yeah, Dragon King Sharoon is usually a high effectiveness, debuffer here. She actually has a different concentration than Aram, but another unit that you guys might be familiar with, those of you guys who were playing during the collaboration, is Ning Ning. So Ning Ning from this Aspa collab is actually also a Scorpio star sign. So the fact that she's not built here kind of tells you a lot that, she's not really used. Another unit of this star sign that is actually not really used is Brigitte. That's right, the one unit that was introducing the block debuff that Witch of the Mirror Tenebria is now going to get. Brigitte also rocks the Scorpio star sign, but you see, with her being level 5 and not built at all, yeah, we really only have one Soul Weaver that is actually used of the star sign, being Dragon King Sharoon. Right, so we will be going ahead and building a kind of sample version of what Aram might look like, probably using one of these units as a template. But yeah, just giving you a little bit of context for some Soul Weavers that you might be familiar with here. Anyway, let's go back to Aram, and she's actually rocking some decent HP. She's on an HP imprint concentration for herself. We'll see why that's kind of relevant later. But her star set actually gives her a starting 30% effectiveness, which is a whopping amount here. And she can also imprint the team with attack team imprints, right? So that's gonna be pretty decent, especially because she's really good at supporting damage dealers. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump ahead to her skill introduction. Now, we're going to start off with her passive, Coastal Discipline. At the start of the first battle, if an enemy takes the first turn, grants immunity to all allies for 3 turns, and if an ally takes the first turn, grants increased effectiveness to all allies for 3 turns. After suffering an attack that targets all enemies, activates Warming Up. Warming Up gains 10 souls, grants vigor and increased speed to all allies for 2 turns. So this is actually quite an insane passive because it's kind of twofold, right? It doesn't matter if your enemy goes first or if you go first, you're going to get a really good buff. If your opponent goes first, you're granting immunity to all allies for 3 turns. This is basically meant to be a Harsetti counter, right? If your opponent picks Harsetti, they essentially guarantee first turn, unless there's a Zeo in play, right? And if your opponent has Zeo, they're also guaranteeing first turn, which means that you're gonna get an immunity for 3 turns, which is huge, right? 3-turn immunity is not something that is very common. In fact, Crimson Armin used to have it, and she got nerfed down to 2 turns. I think Meteor to Cowric can extend the duration of his buffs with a Soul Burn, so you can get a 3-turn immunity there, but really outside of that, it's not something that you see. And also, keep in mind that Harsetti doesn't actually strip buffs. I believe she decreases buff durations with her S3. So yeah, the immunity here is actually insane, right? And it essentially becomes, hey, Harsetti can go first, but we're not going to get debuffed at all, and we're still going to do our stuff. Now, if your ally takes the first turn, let's say you are using Harsetti or Zio and you have Aram on your team, because yes, she can be used with Harsetti. Just as every unit that counters a specific unit out there, they will also be best friends with that said unit, right? So, if your ally takes the first turn, you actually grant increased effectiveness to all allies for 3 turns. That's insane. Just narrowing things down a little bit for the analysis here, right? If you run a Zio, if you run a Harsetti, both units really want effectiveness. A lot of people build Harsetti with effectiveness to land her debuffs, right? So you can have a good chunk of effectiveness on Harsetti. It's easy to build her with 150, even 200 effectiveness, depending on your build. And getting that extra effectiveness buff on that means that even your highest resist opponents are probably succumbing to her debuffs. In that same vein, it's easy to build Zio with 100 to 150. Some people build 200 effectiveness Zios. Some people put Bloody Rose on Zio for an extra 60% effectiveness. That's another 50% effectiveness here. Aram is essentially going to make Zio able to push back even like the highest resist DJBs, Infinite Horizon Acades. It's gonna be insane, okay? She is a really versatile unit that can both help you set up for your kind of aggressive cleave teams, right? Getting effectiveness buff to debuff your opponents, push them back, whatever. Or play defensively. If your opponent goes first, you get the immunity for 3 turns, you're probably tanking up for a bit, and it's compounded with this extra effect here. So whenever you're suffering an attack that targets all enemies, this is once every 3 turns, I believe. Yeah, her passive's on a 3-turn cooldown. So once every 3 turns, if you get hit by an AoE, you get warming up, which gives you the 10 souls, right? Which is huge. On your turn, you get to retaliate with soul burns and stuff into stuff like Harsetti, for example, right? And if your opponent, let's say, does an AoE counter against you, let's say there's, you know, a unit on the other side that does that, when you're trying to go first, you also get the 10 souls. You also grant Vigor, though, and an increased speed to all allies for 2 turns. Now, the Vigor buff is huge because this this essentially lets you proc your Hua Young, right? If you got an Argent Waves Hua Young, you want to proc her here, this is a perfect way to proc her. And she will just absolutely decimate your opponent's highest defense unit. So Vigor also increases your unit's attack and defense by 30%, which is amazing. It's a really strong buff, right? When C. Lilius was giving this to everyone, she was very dominant in that meta at that time. An increased speed also is pretty nice for, you know, trying to lap around your opponent. Keep in mind, though, that the increased speed buff doesn't apply when Harsetti's on the field, so if you're thinking of getting the increased speed to lap the Harsetti's, like, team, she nullifies all of that still. So do keep that in mind, though. Still really strong buffs. You're getting extra offensive and defensive capabilities and increased speed for turn cycling. You get either immunity or effectiveness. Yeah, she's pretty loaded here, okay? But that's just her passive, by the way. We spent a lot of time on this, but that's just her passive. Now let's move on into her next skill here. Let's see a little demonstration first, right? So, yeah, you see here, she is going to be paired with Hua Young, right? The Vigor buff and everything's going to be applied. There's a lot of buff stacking going on there, which could actually be pretty cool for a unit like Charles, by the way. But, yeah, we'll get to potential teammates and stuff later. Skill number 3, Rapid Rescue. Fires a rescue line launcher, granting exploiting weak points to an ally except for the caster, and resetting skill cooldowns before increasing combat readiness by up to 100%. That's right, you heard me right, up to 100%. This skill is unaffected by cooldown increase and decrease effects, okay? So, you can't, like, cheese this skill out with more turns with, like, Alaya, with LRK, with Sylvan Sage Vivian, right? All those units decrease your cooldowns on the team. So this is a pretty long cooldown here. You can get a -1, it could be a 5-turn cooldown, which means in practice it's going to be like a 4-turn cooldown, right? When you use a skill, it counts as a turn at the end of your turn. So yeah, still really long cooldown for this, but it's such a strong effect. Exploiting weak points increase the amount of damage that you do, okay? And not only that, but you get an increase of 100% combat readiness. This is Alots. This is Alots' S2 right here, right? Except it's on a much longer cooldown, but it's a bit stronger in terms of you resetting skill cooldowns fully as well. which means this is Alots plus Earth Iceria combined together. It's Iceria's S2 to fully reset your skills, and Alots' S2 to fully push up your team, push up that unit by 100% combat readiness. This is nuts and can open up a ton of possibilities for unit combos that you can do, right? I believe in this demo, they're going to use her to push up the Aiden over here, right? So yeah, just 100% combat. So your units can go first, do their skills. Aram's gonna push them up, and then you get to do them again. How fun. Alright, anyway, skill number 1, Attention. Attacks the enemy by whipping up the sand and has a 25% chance to inflict stun for 1 turn. It's up to a 35% chance with your skill enhancements, before recovering health of all allies proportional to the caster's max health. An AoE heal that scales on her own health stat is pretty good, especially for healing squishier units. You're gonna get not as much value when you heal tankier units, but this is really good for healing squishier units than you. And the soul burn is you increase the chance to 100% to stun, right? Stuns and sleeps and combat readiness increases, all very common skill effects on the S1, and so it is no surprise that we get another one of these. Every Soul Weaver nowadays has some sort of a stun on their S1, right? Enterprise Acades, DJB, now we have Aram getting added to the list. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, look at that. She is going to be able to build up quite a bit of effectiveness too, so do keep that in mind, because she is an effectiveness Soul Weaver, okay? You're probably not building a whole ton of resist on her. You could, depending on your playstyle and what you're doing. But yeah, you can definitely get a ton of effectiveness, especially with that effectiveness buff that you can get if your ally takes that first turn, right? So if you're playing aggressively and there's a BBK in that example here on the other side, then you can easily soul burn and guarantee a nice little stun, okay? Bar 15%, I guess. So that's pretty nice. Anyway, moving on, we have her artifact introduction, the Queen's Whistle. That's right. You get to increase the attack of all allies by 5 to 10% depending on level. Then, when the ally with the highest attack ends their turn, increases combat readiness of the caster by 10 to 20%. This effect can only be activated once every 2 turns, and this artifact skill effect can only apply to 1 hero within a team. So this is actually a pretty decent little effect here. I would say it's very similar to having Warhorn. Warhorn also increases the attack of all the allies on your team, right? But Warhorn lets you, for every 3 of your enemy's turns, you get to jump up in combat readiness. Here, all you have to do is have the ally with the highest attack end their turn. An ally, like any DPS unit on your side, right? The highest attack unit, and then you'll increase your combat readiness. This happens every 2 turns. Now, Warhorn can technically, if your opponent's lapping you a ton, can activate more than once, but this is still really good. I'd say it's almost kind of better in some ways, right? Because you can kind of control when you get that combat readiness increase. It's good for turn cycling her for sure, and the extra attack can go a long way. I don't know if this is necessarily the best artifact for her. I know there's other artifacts for Soul Weavers that give you a lot of value in terms of effectiveness and effect resistance, like for example the Staff of Ain's Ul Gaun, right? So we'll talk about artifacts and alternatives in a bit, but this is her current artifact here. Yeah, so this is pretty decent. Keep in mind that at plus 15, you get between the level 1 and the max stats. So at plus 15, you get 7.5% attack to everybody. So this is assuming you only get 1 copy of this artifact, and you'll get a 15% increase to combat readiness that can activate once every 2 turns. So in the end, is it going to make a huge difference? Probably not, but I can definitely see this being pretty decent for stacking attack, especially as a Soul Weaver supportive artifact, right? So yeah, I guess it's not too shabby here at all. Do keep in mind that if you can also run things like Idol's Cheer and stuff like that as well, and that can help push up your unit's combat readiness. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the other artifacts that you can be running on her. So she will be coming out in a few days, right? July 17th. So do keep that in mind. That is on the horizon. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the game here so we can take a look at some artifacts. right? Going over to the Soul Weaver artifact. So actually, before we even do that, let's take a look at Warhorn, because I think it's very comparable to her artifact. So if we go over to Warhorn, which I will need to find, Warhorn gives a good amount of attack and good combat readiness to everybody. So let's go sort by max enhance. There you go. So Warhorn also 10% attack to everybody, and at the end of every 3 enemy turns, you gain this 20% combat readiness boost. This does require you to kind of have your opponents go though, so keep that in mind. It's more of a defensive, it's an offensive but also defensive artifact. Mediator Cowrick works really well on this. For example, he's the primary user of this in most cases. But yeah, I can see her artifact being pretty decent, and it's comparable to Warhorn for sure. Okay, so moving on to Soul Weaver artifacts, let's take a look. In terms of her supporting skills, like I think she's gonna be pretty good on healing. It's an AoE heal, right? But if you wanted some extra healing on her with her S1, then you can definitely be using Celestine, right? Celestine is a pretty strong artifact here that you can use to heal the ally with the lowest health by an additional chunk of percentage. That's a percentage based on their health, so it's always going to be very consistent healing. And she also is going to be really decent on, I'd say, like if you're suffering like a bunch of hits from your opponent, Touch of Rekos could be a good way to heal everybody if you're getting hit by a lot of AoEs, for example. It synergizes quite well with the AoE, needing to get hit by an AoE on her turn, right? To get the vigor buff and everything. So that's also not bad. I can also see her running Guardian Ice Crystals. If you're running more of a resist build and also just trying to keep people alive against like a Harsetti tank down type of team, Guardian Ice Crystal is one of the best artifacts out there. Unfortunately, it is a collaboration artifact, but hopefully a generic version of it does come out soon in the meantime. If you want some cleansing with her, because her S3 is actually a non-attack skill, you could run Doctor's Bag to do a cleanse. Okay, so you dispel a debuff from all allies, and you recover some HP of each ally's max health. This scales with your ally's max health, not with hers, so you can have a lower health pool on her and potentially still heal for quite a bit. It's pretty consistent healing. Keep in mind this can only be activated once every 3 turns though, but it should be fine because her skills are on relatively long cooldowns, right? Her S3 is on a relatively long cooldown. That's why I also recommend stuff like Celestine, because you'll be using your S1 quite a bit on her, and I would say a counter build might not be bad if you want to sustain your team. It's really up to you. Speed doesn't seem like it's a real priority when it comes to her, because she does seem like she wants to go after some of your DPS units. Now, we can talk about team compositions. If you're playing a speedier team, you definitely want to get some speed on her in those cases. If you want to have souls to soul burn, not only does she provide souls, right, with her skill, but you know, you can also get souls with Spotted Mouse Hair Tie. So this is also a really good artifact here that lets you start the battle with 10 souls, right? And coupled with her 10 soul generation, she starts with 20 souls, which is not bad. And then after an ally is a soul burn, you have another % chance to acquire another 10 souls. So this could be a great way to kind of snowball advantage against Harsetti teams, or where you're kind of guaranteed to get hit by an AoE on your first turn anyway. So it's kind of nice. Unless, of course, there's a Bellion on the other side, in which case you're going to be out of luck. Another great thing I think you can be using on her is Bird's Eye View. So after using a non-attack skill, you acquire a ton of souls. This is Brigitte's artifact. It's not very commonly seen, but getting souls is really good, especially if this is maxed out. You get 20 souls. You don't need it maxed out though. After using an S3 for her, you can get up to 15 souls at plus 15, which is pretty good, right? You can soul burn a lot of units that deal extra damage with only 10 extra souls to soul burn, so it's a pretty great way to utilize her kit. Yeah, God, she has so much synergies with so many different artifacts, it's kind of great. If you're using your S1 a lot, then you could actually be using Sacred Tree Branch. So this is actually one of my go-to artifacts for either Sharoon, Dragon King Sharoon, or regular Sharoon. You get to increase your you get to increase your effectiveness by 22.5%, which is a hefty amount. And after attacking, any attack, it doesn't have to be a basic attack, single target attack, whatever. So for her, it's mostly going to be her S1. You get to increase combat readiness of yourself and the ally except for yourself with the highest attack. You get to increase that combat readiness by 10%. 50%. This is not limited to once per turn or anything like that, so if you're on a counter build and you're countering a lot, you can push up combat readiness quite quickly, both for herself and an ally, right? And again, when the ally with the highest attack does take the turn, she gets an extra increase in combat readiness, so this could be a great way to turn cycle her if you want to get her S3 back up more quickly. Okay, so moving on here, we also have Flawless Garments. This is one thing that I kind of want to mention as well, like honorary mention. If you're going for like a mixed effect res effectiveness build, this is a great way to stack up some effect resistance, and you get to increase effectiveness at the end of your turn by 15% up to 3 times. So in longer stretched out fights, you can get up to a 45% increase in effectiveness, which could be pretty decent in terms of applying stuns to your opponent. But again, keep this in mind, this is a collaboration artifact, and it's not available for right now, right? Speaking of collaboration artifacts, another one that is pretty good is the Staff of Ain's Ul Gaun, which I believe should... Oh, well, I take that back. That's a mage artifact. I did mention this earlier. Now I gotta put a disclaimer. That's a mage artifact. Never mind. But this is a good mage artifact. Look at that. Just increase effectiveness and effect resistance. So I guess the more comparable one in this case would be Flawless Garments, but a little bit less useful because you have to stack up your effectiveness rather than your effectiveness starting off at its full potential. So yeah. But those are the artifacts and some things that I can see people running. What you decide to run is definitely going to be based on what you decide to build her on. So let's go ahead and talk about her potential builds, shall we? Alright guys, for this example, we're going to be using Ning Ning because she shares the same stats and she doesn't have any passives that increase her her stats by any amount, so it's going to be a great way to compare, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slap on a artifact at plus 15. We'll just throw a Spotted Mouse tie, hair tie on her right now, just to get that increase flat health that we get from the artifact here. 500 something health is nothing to scoff at. It is pretty good. Now, all of these units, by the way, like Ning Ning and such, they all increase by effectiveness for self-imprint. If you get Aram's like self-imprint for extra health, you can definitely get more HP than what I'm about to show you. But if you're going to be using her as kind of a follow-up unit to your opponent, to your DPS units, you could actually run a counter build that's a bit slower. You saw the amount of speed I was able to get on like my Dragon King Sharoon, right? So might not be bad to be running her on something. If you're running her slower and your opponent's taking first turn, you actually don't need immunity set. So when it comes to sets here, you can run counter, you can run speed, right, for your 4 set pieces, and you can definitely be running her on HP, defense, resist, and hit set, depending on what you're kind of going for here. Okay, another honorary mention is going to be protection set. Is very nice for giving everyone an extra barrier. You can buff stack with this as well. So if you start with protection set, you get a barrier, and then you're giving everyone a 3-turn immunity on top of that. It's going to be pretty powerful, right? So yeah, these are the sets I'd kind of recommend looking into. Let's go ahead and quickly build a counter set, and let's see what we can get away with. So if I go for, like, let's say counter and HP, I want a little bit of speed, but I don't necessarily want a whole ton. I definitely want some effectiveness as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can build, and we'll fast forward this and I'll show you a build at the end. Okay, so here we are fast forwarded to a little bit of a gear set preview. If you go for counter and effectiveness, you can actually probably stack a ton of effectiveness here, right? Look at that. I actually opted to not go for HP set and went for a hit set instead. 1500 defense, almost 17k HP on 200 something speed with a counter set and a hit set. That's looking pretty good, especially if your opponent's gonna be going first, right? Now I will say that if you are kind of worried that she's a little too squishy, don't worry, because this is actually an effectiveness ring. So if you went ahead and just went for an HP set ring, which I don't have any for hit set pieces here, but if you went for an HP set ring, let's say you went for let's just throw something down that has some effectiveness, maybe on counter set, maybe something like this or this, right? Look at that. Suddenly you have a lot more bulk here, right? So if you went for an HP set ring, you can still get up to 150 effectiveness if you just had another hit set piece somewhere here that you can throw in, right? Definitely very, very nice to see. So you can build quite a bit of bulk and also have quite a bit of effectiveness to boot, right? So if I try to find one last piece, just want to show you the potential here. Going for hit set, right? HP, maybe something like this. Yeah, look at that. Okay, see, not that bad, right? Almost 20k health, 1400 something defense, which is pretty decent, and almost 150 effectiveness here on 220 speed. That's a pretty solid build. Now, do keep in mind that you wanna have her synergize with your units, right? You definitely don't just want to have her built at a certain speed. You want to have a game plan in mind. So you might have some bruisers or DPSs that are slightly faster than her here. And if she's too fast here, don't worry, you can go ahead and just swap out a few pieces and give her an HP % boot or something like that, right? It can also really work, especially if you're running against Harsetti. You probably want less speed, more bulk, right? Maybe increase your effectiveness, maybe even build some resist. You could build a hybrid type of build. So now let's go ahead and see if we can make her speedy enough to kind of go with a kind of cleave team. Okay, so here we have a kind of sample speed build, obviously not like the best speed pieces I have. Took a few from Fire Litica here, but we managed to get her up to like 280 something speed, which is, again, not that bad. You don't necessarily need her to go first. She is a unit that benefits from any ally on your team going first. So if you have another opener on your side that can potentially, you know, bridge for a unit, let's say you're gonna go first with a Zeo, and you use Zeo to use Jacko to nuke somebody, or your Yufine to nuke somebody, or you bridge into Afternoon Soak Flan, or anything of that sort. You can have your Aram come afterwards in terms of speed, right? And then you can push up that unit's combat readiness by 100%, get them back to the front lines, reset their cooldowns fully, and then they're just gonna go stomp your opponent all over again, right? So this is absolutely disgusting in terms of a unit. She's very flexible. She can be used in fast teams, she can be used in slow teams. I can definitely see people kind of gravitating towards faster teams here, but I can definitely see people utilizing her a lot in Arena, in Guild Wars, against Harsetti teams, which are running rampant everywhere, right? Against tank down teams, could be really nice if you have some defense penetration units that you just want to reset cooldowns for so they can nuke your opponent twice. Yeah, really incredibly powerful. I can definitely see her being used in control teams too. Not only does she have a stun and some sustain on her S1, but the ability to go ahead and just reset your full team control skills like Silverblade Araminta's AoE stuns. It's the possibilities here are kind of endless, and they kind of make me a little bit scared. But what does that mean for you guys? Well, for you guys, that means that I think personally, she is a very good unit to be trying to pull for. You can see in terms of team synergies and units that you can work with, units that utilize a lot of buffs, like Charles could be kind of nice in a slower team. You can see here, new kid Aiden is being run. Hopefully you can snag her from the free Moonlight summons that we're getting with the event, if you haven't gotten a copy of her, just like me. You can use her with Argent Wave Hua Young here. Ken also kind of scales with Vigor, it's kind of nice, but definitely not a real good PvP unit in terms of RTA. Yeah, Aiden though, look at this. When you come in here with Aiden, she's really strong right now in RTA. She's good injury, good damage, good detonations. She got buffed recently and got an EE as well. So look at that. Good damage, able to nuke here, right? And Aram coming up on the combat readiness bar, not super fast. She's kind of just hanging back there, and she gets to get, she gets to push up the Aiden here, right, with her S3. It's gonna fully push her up in terms of combat readiness. It's also going to give her the, -2 turn decrease. So full reset on her skills, come back in with an S3 that you can nuke, exploiting weak points as well for the extra damage. I can definitely see a lot of good synergies coming out with this, and even if a unit doesn't use Vigor Buff to gain additional effects on your team, the great thing about Vigor Buff is it increases attack and defense, guys. Huge potential. Vigor stacks with attack buffs, Vigor stacks with defense buffs. It's a great buff in general to have. Now, looking at this, you're opening up with a Fire Litica here. Aram can now push up any DPS that you want, right? So you can push up your Dark Corvus, you can push up your Laia. Both of those units have insane damage that you can use to completely wreck your opponent, right? Dark Corvus coming in with the Soulburn S3. He has Extinction, prevents revives. Look at that damage there. Exploiting weak points, amplifying the amount of output that you can have against your opponent, right? Laia is also a really good unit to be using with her. It's kind of like what people did in Guild War with Iseria. Iseria can come in and use her S2 to reset a Dark Corvus, reset a Laia, and you nuke your opponent, right? It's pretty cool. But yeah, Strazi coming in here with another big nuke. He's another unit that you could potentially use, right? Strazi comes in with an S3. You get to take another turn, you S2. Aram comes afterwards, pushes him up, resets him. He gets to S3 again, then he gets to S2. It's just disgusting, guys. Absolutely disgusting. Yeah. Look at that. Getting hit by an AoE, Vigor buff. The Vigor buff can come later in combat too, right? And it's just, it might not help in all cases, but it's just a nice added bonus on top of everything that we just talked about. So yeah, general conclusions on Aram. Highly recommend you guys pull for her, and if you don't have enough Covenant bookmarks, do not worry, we are getting summer bookmarks, right? We are getting bookmarks through the event, and if you are curious about the event, I know some of you guys have been talking to me in the comments about how you're unable to access this Epic Dash event on the left side here. Make sure you check out the post from Smilegate. I'll try to link it down below. If you're a new player, you have to clear some story and stuff in order to see this event, but if you go over here to the Epic Dash and you get the Epic Dash Pass, you can see that there are going to be bookmarks that come later down the line, I believe in like week 2. Yeah, we start to see these bookmarks here, right? The Twin Librarians bookmark. It is usable in place of Covenant bookmarks for a limited time. So yeah, once we get to week 2 and stuff, if you're unable to pull Aram, look at that. You're getting quite a few of these bookmarks, right, as we go along the rewards into each of these weeks, and hopefully you'll be able to pull her with some of those. Right. Anyway, with that being said though, guys, good luck on your summons out there. Thank you so much for watching. If this video has helped you, do leave a like and subscribe for more Epic 7 content. And until next time, take care.